Okay, item number 6 is the Woodbridge Fire Department. Sean?
Morning. Let's see, what are we first? For we'd like to, we understand we closed basically the upstairs of the Country Club of Woodbridge. What we'd like to do, the fire department would like to do, is do some training up there. Not do any damage to this upstairs floor, but use it and do search and rescue training to find trapped victims and treat it as an actual fire emergency. And we would basically be training at night and go over there and do search and rescue drills. We'd advance hose lines, obviously not flowing any water, just pulling lines into the building and practicing, doing search and rescue, doing RIT training, fill a couple of rooms up with the artificial smoke, basically the smoke machines from like you see for like a DJ and stuff like that. And there's a lot of technical training we could do in there with rope. Like I said, the main one is going to be search and rescue. Basically, we have Rescue Randy. It's basically a 175-pound dummy that you stick in the building. We have a couple of them, and we would treat it. If there was a fire in the building, we'd have to go in and we'd have to do search and rescue and have multiple crews go in there and search the entire first floor to try to find it. Once we do it, we latch onto them and then we pull them out to safety to the outside. So we would like the ability to do some training. It would be highly effective for us, and we're always looking for houses that are about to be torn down that we can do some demo with. And then if the time does come where we actually, if the country club is going to be torn down or destroyed, we'd like to cut some holes in the roof at that point, flow some water, do forcible entry on the doors upstairs. There's so much we could do. It's
Not that we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We're not getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm just letting you know where it's going. Right now, we'd like to,
Keep it small.
yeah, we'd like to do some of the rescues. Yeah, we'd like to do some of the,
Carried away.
yeah. So what we're planning on doing here would do no damage to the upstairs.
Would you damage anywhere?
No,
Oh, good point. Okay.
would do damage nowhere. All you would see is, we would do it. Our drill nights are usually Tuesday nights, nighttime. Yeah, we would find out, make sure we didn't interfere with anybody, because obviously we'd have the trucks over there, and just so we didn't interfere, especially during the summertime if they have the pool going and the golf going. We don't want to do disruption, but it'd be perfect if we could even put some fake smoke in there, like the smoke machines, and then we could do practice positive pressure ventilation, ventilating the smoke out of the building. It's a lot of good opportunity for us to do a lot of big training there. So we would like the ability to use that facility.
I have questions, but go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
I have 3 questions.
Sure.
Is there generally any kind of residue, damage,
From the
impact
smoke?
from anything, from any of this?
No, because what we'll do is we'll actually, when we set up, we'll make sure all the hose is clean after a fire that we bring back. So everything, it's not, we're dragging mud or anything through the building. There is no water going to be flowed. The lines are going to be charged. We'll probably end up charging them with air. We have the capability of charging the hose line with air, just so we can have the guys stretch the lines charged and go for a good distance inside the building in case we did have a fire. And there'd be no damage, and the smoke doesn't give off any residue, or it's all environmentally friendly.
I have 2 other questions. I'm
Sure.
not sure if Tony should answer it or you, but is there an insurance issue? Do we have to deal with making sure that our insurance covers all of this in
It's a
some
good question. I will check that, and you could make it, contingent on that, yeah.
Okay.
We do, just so going on with the insurance, we do a lot of training throughout town. We actually just did training down at the water company and everything. We don't, as long, we're covered under insurance in case somebody gets hurt.
No,
I
and
know
whatever
that.
else.
I know that, I'm concerned, just, we don't necessarily want the building, which is,
Talking mostly property.
right,
Property,
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
So,
because-
but it goes to my third question, which is, this may be a little wacko. I get that it's a little wacko, but are there other fire departments who would be interested in paying the town to use this building? Is that a revenue opportunity?
It could
Say
be,
yes.
it could
Say
be,
yes.
it could be, and it could not be. When we do some training in Bethany, when they have vacant houses and they allow us to come up there and we do training. On a building like this, we do a lot of training ourselves, but we'd actually bring in probably Bethany and maybe Orange and a couple other towns to do training with us, because especially what we went through on Sunday with Benai Jacob, it's a large structure. I mean, the fire was contained to one area, but we called for Bethany. Bethany showed up. We had Seymour covering the town. We work with other fire departments. So
Think bigger. People we don't know.
you can, it becomes more of a liability when the problem is you're gonna need somebody from the fire department to be with these people, so you don't do damage to the building, because when you tend to go to another town and you say, don't destroy things, the fire department is great for destroying things. So, take an axe and go right through it. That's why, well, I'm not making a case for other departments, I'm making a case for
Fair
our
enough,
department.
Fair enough.
To your
It's-
second point, I don't know that our insurance underwriter has underwritten this building as a fire training facility.
Well, that's my issue.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, that's a
They
big,
should know.
that's a big issue, I think. And then I think we need to really understand, because first of all, we have a pool operation there that runs till 8 o'clock, I think, I saw the other.
Summer.
Summers,
Right.
yeah, and golf is, well, summers, I guess it's May through, what, Labor Day or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Memorial Day
the
through
pool is
Labor Day.
Memorial to Labor Day.
Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Right.
And then we have the golf, which is April
Beyond
to November. I mean, that's the first thing we do there. So whatever you're advocating here, I would kinda like to see some kind of written proposal in terms of when you wanna do it, what times, how many guys are trudging through here, and what you're really doing. I'm not trying to be obstructionist, but I think we need to know, because our first order of business over there is a golf course and
Yeah, we
and a
wouldn't-
pool,
we
and we have
wouldn't-
an obligation to Billy Casper that we're not stepping on their toes and getting some kind of interference with contract going here. So I mean, there's a lot of issues here other than just we'd like to foster your training, you know, cause I would, but we're not, this is not a training facility. So I do have some concerns, and if you would wanna write something up in terms of, you know, a little mini business, you know, when you wanna do it, how many guys, what these activities are and so forth, it would give us a little better idea as to how we could mesh that, if we can, into the other business operations we're running there. To the extent we ever even can, because I don't know that our insurance company is gonna let us run training facilities over there.
Right, I think perhaps that would be helpful, and we could present that to the insurance company. It would be very clear what the proposal is, and then we could get an answer back from them. Do you have some kind of, we'll put together some description of what's
Doesn't have
involved?
to be real extensive, but just something that.
Well, as a follow-up, is this like once a year you're thinking about doing this?
No,
Is
we're
this-
thinking about doing this quite a bit throughout the year, if we have the ability to use the upstairs. I mean, you gotta realize, you got a volunteer fire department that everybody works during the day, so this isn't gonna be something that's gonna be done at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is probably, when we train, we were on the ice last Tuesday night, and we were on the ice at 10 o'clock at night. So, I mean, we train, right, we're not gonna interrupt, and our goal is we would not interfere with the golf operation or the pool operation. When we train at night, we usually train after 8 o'clock usually. Between 7 and 8 o'clock we start, we usually get there around 7. By the time we set up and really get going, it's usually 8 o'clock.
Works out that this is feasible. I think a plan like that, and if you showed that you were gonna do it at 9 o'clock or something where the golf course is closed, everything's closed, I think would be very helpful for us and for the insurance to know what exactly this training is. Are you speaking though, Sean, of basically a fog machine? Or would you need to bring trucks into the circle, or is it basically guys going over in their own cars, parking in the parking lot? In other words,
No,
you need to.
the
stop
equipment
that.
is all on the apparatus. So the fog machine comes, it's maybe about this big. It's not very big. We'd fill up a couple rooms with smoke, with fake smoke. It's a fog machine basically that DJs use. And that would be to the extent of it. I mean, there's no damage done to the
Or put a truck in the.
You'd put a truck in the circle because we would have the equipment on it, or we could put the truck in the parking lot, but the equipment's on the truck that we would want to use. So we'd want to use some of the hose, we'd want to use rope, we'd want to use all that other stuff, the fans on it and everything else.
The access to the parking and the handicap come up to the circle and they get, if there's a, either whether for the pool or the golf course.
Yeah, we wouldn't be in the way of that, even if we were there at that time, but usually when we train, nobody's around.
To Susan's point about using it for others, I kind of brought that in scope a little and thought, it almost sounds like fun, like laser tag. Can we, can we try it ourselves in the fun?
Well, we invite you guys to come out to our training. We were on the water last Tuesday night down on 69 there at 10 o'clock at night, and we were actually in the water.
Commission, or we would have been there.
It's actually a lot of fun. We took a bunch of pictures, and we're actually going to go back out on the water on a weekend during the day. When it gets maybe a little bit warmer, so the ice is actually thinner, because when we were on it, it was about 6 or 7 inches thick. We had to take a saw and cut a hole in the water and jump in. But we want the ice so it's really thin, so if somebody's going to fall through, like an inch or two of ice, they're going to go through, and that's what we're going to end up doing in the next couple of weeks. But we'll probably be in the water two more times.
Yeah, one last thing. First, I commend you for that and your commitment to training. And secondly, is Rescue Randy a Woodbridge resident? I mean, that's important to know, right?
He's a Woodbridge resident. He lives over on 100 Center Road at the firehouse. He lives in the closet.
So Sean, I
Yes.
think the consensus here is if you could give us an outline of a plan, we also, and we'll check about the insurance, we'll also have a mechanism for scheduling to make sure, probably go through Tony, I would think, because we'll have to check with Billy Casper, we'll have to check with Anthony about the pool. So it'll be a little more complicated. If you could do that, that would be really helpful.
Sure.
And then we'll follow up with it, okay?
I think we do some training. We would probably do some training over the summer. Not a whole lot there. We'd probably stay away from the country club, to be honest, just so we're on the same page. Usually, we'll probably stay away from the club during the summer because those are our warm months. We like to flow water. We like to use the pump and actually do pump operator training, flow a lot of water. So it's probably not a facility that we'd like to use. We go to the high school, Beecher School for something like that. The club we'd actually be looking to use more in the winter months, just because it's colder and we can do search and rescue inside. We're inside the building and we're not flowing water, so we're not creating an ice condition. There's a lot of variables. When it's warmer out, we like to do some of the other training, like extrication training, where we have cars, we take the tools, we put Randy back in the vehicle, and we cut Randy out of the vehicle and do all that. So there's a lot of stuff we do over the summertime when the warmer months, even the spring, summer, and fall. This would be more something that we would only use probably in the winter time, late fall, winter.
Can we call him Smiley Rescue Randy?
You can call them whatever you want.
That way we're consistent, you know?
Okay, so I think we have a plan on this. You'll follow up.
Sure.
Okay, that's good. I do want to mention, it was going to be in my first Selectmen's report, but you mentioned it, the fire at the kitchen at B'nai Jacob.
Yes.
On Sunday, the fire department did an outstanding job. There was Sunday school going on. All the kids were quickly taken out. There was everybody was fine. It looks like the kitchen was badly damaged, but please thank all of your men. Everybody did a
Yes.
terrific
Thank you.
job.
We have
That's
letters
great.
going to Bethany and Seymour to thank them too.
Now you have another item on
We
the
do.
agenda, number 7.
And this came up last year, and we didn't end up doing it because it was short notice. We want to try to get ahead of the 8 ball here, and we will have a plan. We'll meet with the police department to figure out a plan like we talked about last year. We actually had one, but I will get with the deputy chief and the chief of police and we'll come up with a plan. But what we're looking to do, I know your land leases are up this year. What we'd like to do is just have the ability to have you guys put in somewhere into the lease that we would have the opportunity possibly to have October 31st or November 1st for truck or treat again, if we wanted to do fireworks on the Fitzgerald property. Just so we're not jumping through hoops trying to find who we need to get permission from, since the leases are up and they're coming back up for renewal, we'd like to see that in so we don't have to jump through hoops. But we will come back to you with a plan for if we do fireworks in the Fitzgerald property for trick or treat.
Yeah, so your request is what?
My request is to hold it, to have the fire department able to use the property October 31st and November 1 of this year. But the leases are up December 31st, I believe.
We're gonna move on to the leases, and what I would like to recommend with the leases is that we say that if the Board of Selectmen approves a request from the firemen to do fireworks, we will not be approving that tonight.
Right.
But if they come back to us, and if it's decided that they can do it, that the lessee will permit that use. We can decide that when we get to the lease, but that's,
Unless it's gonna somehow, I can't imagine, but is that somehow gonna influence whether someone takes it? I mean, what if the guy whoever takes this lease doesn't want fireworks?
I think, did you speak to him, Jerry?
No,
You didn't get a chance. We've been trying to
It's
contact
one
him.
person, it's one lessee.
It's one-
Arnold.
it's
Yeah, it's Arnold.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And last time, I think you were before us, I think he had approved it, the last time.
He
so-
did approve it. There were, he wanted to see different things, and I mean, we're willing to work with him. It's just, I think we need to get, we should have approval. We should be coming to you for approval, not the leasee. So I think we want I mean, the way I understand it is the haying season or the farming season is usually done mid-September, late September. So even if you had the lease, instead of ending December 31, ending October 1, then it falls back onto this board again, and we would come back with a plan if the fire department decides to do fireworks for trick or treat. We'd have the ability to just come here and not go through the leasee.
But for one day and one event of fireworks, where you're asking us to make it, put a contingency in a lease that, before we even know we're approving that,
Right.
now we're sticking that into a proposed lease to Mr. Arnold that we have to reserve this day, that we may not even happen anyway. If I was a private person, I wouldn't let you interfere with my lease rights that way.
But why don't we talk to Mr. Arnold? We don't know, he may say yes. I mean, it's.
Yeah,
Well, he
think
might,
that's-
we can present
that's
it
a
to him.
different story,
Right.
but that's
And
not what we have
If he
here.
doesn't,
No,
if he
right.
doesn't, then we can come back and we can decide which way you wanna go.
I'm
So
cool
we-
with that.
we-
I just can't see interfering with our lease, our ability to make a
For
lease
$10.
for something that we haven't even approved. Well, you can say that, but
No, that was just done.
we have to make
Joe.
logical decisions, and that's just not a logical decision to interfere with some business right over here for something that we haven't even approved yet.
No, but I indicated we would ask him to see if he has any objection to it before
And
we did
I'm
it.
fine with that, but then you made some remark
Right,
about
well,
$10
so
and all
I
that,
think-
which is
It was a
irrelevant.
joke.
All right,
Too
well,
low.
I think, any more questions for Sean? Okay, Sean, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, the next item is the farm leases. I believe we talked about this program at our last meeting. This is something we do every year. And just a list of leases, Jerry?
They're right in the packet. We have letters
Oh,
from
right.
everyone who said yes.
Right, which one?
The last one, Robin, we're ready to get that in right
Oh, because Robin Norton will not be getting a lease because,
So I don't get a letter of
She's
her
from Bethlehem.
contempt?
Well, I have a question about that, thanks. There's a Robin Souza. Is that the same person?
That's not.
No, these people live in Bethany. on
Robin
Road.
Norton.
But did she write a letter?
Who's Robin
asking
Souza?
for approval?
Yes, she did,
Well,
because,
just next time, I'd like to see, I understand that you're kind of predetermined based on where they're located,
Robin Souza.
but I'd just like to see what their purpose or approach
Got
was.
that.
well, didn't you get
She
the
has a
letter?
letter.
Not Robin's, I got everybody else's, so I was just wondering, maybe my packet was
There's
just
a letter
missing.
from Robin Souza. My question
Rob-
is, could
yeah,
Robin
that's a
Souza
good
be
point.
Robin Norton's
Right, 'cause
sister?
there's no
Souza?
Souza. I think you might
That's
be
what
right.
I was trying to figure out, if I was just missing a
Thank you.
letter.
I think you're right.
I don't know, because there is a letter in there from this
Well,
person.
there's no other Robin Souza.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
so maybe we actually have it.
Oh,
You
I
might,
see.
you're right, I
That's
didn't,
what
I didn't know if.
Yeah.
Different
You do
name.
have
Or
it.
there's just a mistake.
So that's her
It's a mistake.
same person.
Okay.
Okay, great. No, that's helpful for me to know.
Detectives we are.
And is she getting a lease?
No.
No?
Oh.
She's from Bethlehem.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the list. Jerry, do you want to just talk
Yeah, we can
through
go,
them?
all the leases and the expression of interest from everybody are very, very standard leases, and you all have a copy of the lease. Joe brought up one issue with me before the meeting about including something in the lease that is not currently in the lease and is in the guidelines, and that's number 7 of the guidelines that says the lessee will plant a winter cover crop following harvest and leave the property in at least as good a condition at the commencement of the lease, and shall remove all personal property and equipment. There is something in the lease that requires the lessee to remove the personal property and equipment, and that's in number 3, Joe. We didn't see that, but there is nothing in there about leaving the property in as good a condition, and I will add that, we'll make that change. So, all of these leases are standard and with no issues except for the Keith Arnold lease that we just discussed, and the issue of whether Mr. Arnold will agree to allow the fire department to use fireworks if the Board of Selectmen approves that request by the fire department. And as well as, and I understand that there's another issue with Mr. Arnold's leasing the property, and that is allowing the cross-country team to use the property for one of their meets during the season. And we'll speak to Mr. Arnold, make sure he says yes. I think he doesn't have any objection to that, but I'm not sure.
He doesn't, as long as he's given notice.
Given advance
So he
notice
gets
of when it
the
is.
second cutting effect.
Right.
They've done it a few years now,
Yeah.
so. I'm sure
So
he's
we
used to it.
propose, assuming he agrees with those 2 conditions, I propose to put a couple of sentences in his lease with those conditions, and then he will be fine. And the Mark Santoro lease, there's a letter in your packet from Mark and Lisa indicating that their agreement to have the property used by town organizations, it's gonna be town organizations, which is adjacent to the property that they lease, subject to advance notice. And we're gonna put that, if Mark has no objection, put that condition in his lease as well. But other than those 3 unique situations, the leases will be the standard form lease that you have.
So, we need a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign these leases as described. Based on your comments, Joe, can we do a motion for all of the leases other than Keith Arnold's, and we'll come back to that one by itself? Just so we have a motion on the
Why don't we
table.
do it subject to getting it all done? Yeah, we can do it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so we're okay with that. All right, so is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to execute these leases as discussed? Second.
You guys, you moved and
No, he
seconded?
moved that.
I'm-
I'll
You can
second it,
second.
okay.
All right, any discussion?
I have one discussion. So I
Yes.
just want to clarify Sousa. So Sousa is, at least in our packet, Norton,
Mhm.
and
Right.
that's something that we're not. I'm just
Correct.
clarifying because I have that letter, and that was
Letter
one that was a
last
little
year said
interesting because it included, I believe, horses and that type of thing. Was that the one? Oh, picking up bales for the, okay. I just want to be sure. Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, then all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, item number 9. Oh, sure. Okay, if there's no objection, we're gonna move to item number, which one was that?
11F.
All right,
11F.
11F, because Chris Sorensen is here to answer any questions, if that's okay with everyone. This is a bid waiver for a sole source with regard to RWA. Chris, do you want to describe the?
Terry Gilbertson submitted a letter to all you guys, and you should have it in your packet. It just states that through the Connecticut Department of Public Utilities, that, when you had to put in a water line, the water company does it all. You don't have a choice to get a private contractor in or anything. So they came to us with a price in the beginning, and then we sat down with them line item by line item, and we were able to save another $5,000 off of that. It's something we don't have a choice, we have to do it, and
It's a sole source, mostly the big question is, it's in the budget, it's, the big question is the sole source.
yeah.
But it's budget.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of purchasing question. It's a purchasing issue.
Yeah, it's over the bid limit of $10,000, and we don't,
We have the same problem with fire.
yeah.
A little bit of an extra fee that was needed right after.
Yeah, yeah.
I forget that was for new materials, they changed the,
It was a beam, a structural
Yes.
beam.
Right.
What happens is it's the beam they had,
I think that was 18.
it was 18 inches and we needed a 24-inch one just because they thought it'd be safer. And so,
Is there a motion to approve the sole source RWA Water Connect line?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Thanks for explaining.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, item number 9 is receipt of the 8-24 report from TP&Z. That was a really pro forma step in the Beecher Road School process, and TP&Z actually approved. And even if they hadn't, we could have gone ahead. But is there a motion to receive the 824 report? Thank you. A second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, number 10 is various resolutions. Tony, do you want to
Sure.
speak to those?
The first resolution is submitted for the South Central Regional Council of Governments for a Regional Performance Incentive Program grant, which SCROG is going to use for development of a regional GIS data service. And so it's a regional grant that requires this resolution, but the grant is paying for the project, and it's actually through the Council of Governments. It's not through our town. Is
So,
that
let's see.
helpful? That's the A, regional. The confusion here is the Council of Governments is using the same grant that we are using for the Nutmeg Network, but they're two totally separate projects. It just happens to be the same grant, so it requires the same type of resolution. Does that help?
So that's the second one, right?
That's the
you're
second one,
describing.
yeah, but because it has the
So-
same,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
We've done this GIS grant.
So we have
Right.
GIS, this grant will help to develop a regional GIS data service that we can be accessed by all towns, and more of a regional approach to it.
So is there a motion to approve the resolution endorsing the SCROG proposal?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Tony's explained the Nutmeg Network
Right.
similarly,
Right.
right?
Thanks to Ellen here helping to point out the benefits of the Nutmeg Network to us. We were able to move forward with the grant for the Nutmeg Network, and there are two costs involved with the Nutmeg Network. And for those of you who don't know, it's the state's fiber network that helps to improve our internet connection and gives us access to the high-speed internet through the state and some other programs that they'll offer on that. Basically, there's the fiber connection itself to the network, where there has to be a, typically right now they're usually in schools. So we would have to build a fiber connection to a hub, which would be Amity would be the closest. However, because we have the 911 system and the police data network in the center building, which is also fiber, there was recently this new program allows us to use that network to also tie into the Nutmeg Network. So as a result, we don't have to spend any money on building a fiber loop, which some towns have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on. Ours happen to be in the same building and in the same room, where the two fiber connections are probably 5 feet apart or 4 feet apart.
Good planning, Tony.
So, luckily they made that change, and so we don't have to actually make a connection to Amity. We can use the public safety. It's separated, so it's two separate connections, but we will then connect to that network. And so the grant funds the equipment to make the connection, which is what the $24,469.30 is. So we have the all the pieces in place except for this resolution.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution regarding the Nutmeg Network?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Okay.
And now the Has Waste Center.
The town has in its budget in waste management, every year those of you who've been through the budget process, we spend a portion of our waste management budget, and it depends on the program and the cost of the program, and there's a formula which has in the resolution, could be 10,000, could be 12,000, it's generally that neighborhood, for to be part of the regional has waste collection on Long Wharf. So I'm sure some of you have probably been there actually, and so that's to participate in that program for another 3 years. And they also come and do a one in Woodbridge, I think once a year, where they do a satellite collection.
That's right.
Right.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution with respect to the Has Waste Collection Center? Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay. Report of the Administrative Officer and Finance Director.
Okay.
Keep down.
Okay. Thanks. So the monthly report is through January 2014. Has a slight surplus of $8,000 for the end of the year. Some highlights for you. There are $136,000 surplus projected in grants, mainly due to the $120,000 additional town road aid funds. We had budgeted $120 at the beginning in the budget, and the state is awarded $240 in round figures. So that's where a majority of that comes from. We do have some slight shortfalls in some of the pilot grants, and we've gotten the governor's recommended governor's budget figures for this year, and similar trend where the pilot grants are cut and the town road aid is not. So that's something for you to consider when we review the budget and the revenue figures. I'll show those to you. In department revenue, we have a shortfall of $637,000, of course, mainly due to a $788,000 shortfall in golf revenues, which we are aware and we have discussed. There is a surplus in conveyance fees, town clerk fees, and zoning permits, collectively about $150,000. So that leaves you your shortfall of $637,000. And we have a shortfall in our interest income line of about $20,000. For expenditures, the Country Club of Woodbridge, the projection here is a surplus of $375,000, and there's a few items in here I want to explain to you. The original budget for the Country Club was 1.448. And the expenditures here total a little over $1 million and are as follows. The expenses under the old Billy Casper contract through December 31st is $835,000 and $95,000 for the 6 months of the new contract. In addition, there'll probably be roughly $40,000 in expenses related to the clubhouse through June 30th. These are operating expenses, not the ones we spoke of earlier. These are, although I think the one thing that's in here is the lighting, because we had done that already, the emergency lighting. But this doesn't include some of the other improvements we discussed. This includes heating, security, water, limited water use, electricity, these items.
Right.
So that's about $40,000. Finally, our country club fund has a deficit of a little over $100,000, $101,000 from prior years when we had the former operator. As you all know, we have a claim of $120,000 here for that, and that's, those combined. It was that's why we have a deficit in this fund of $101,000 as expenditures exceeded revenues, partly because of that. So my recommendation here is for you to consider is to transfer that deficit out of that fund and into the general fund to eliminate that deficit, because I'm not sure of what the status is. I mean, the idea here all along was that maybe that those funds would help to pay for this deficit, but I'm not sure of that.
Is this what we call the enterprise fund? Is this what you're referring to?
This is this is
the actual
this is the
operating
actual
account.
purchasing capital account where we actually had operated the country
gotcha.
club out of for a few years
Okay.
before the Selectmen decided to move it into the general fund. So we had operated it out of the capital fund for a few years, and that's where this comes from. So it's been mentioned in our audit a few times, and it's been mentioned in a few of our rating reviews. Not a big deal, but it's something for you to consider. We had the appropriation in this account because of the operations. It's something for you to decide whether or not you want to do that. But it's about $101,000, and so that's built into this estimate, this analysis here.
Tony,
So-
40,000, I'm sorry, the 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a little unclear, so is that in addition to the losses, the operational losses of the company?
That's correct. Right. Those are the.
So
those
we
are
can
the.
add that to our ownership of the CC.
That's correct.
Just so everyone's.
That's absolutely correct. Those are the expenditures that we would incur because we're now responsible for the
We now
clubhouse.
own this piece of property.
Correct. Right. Right.
I want to make 2 comments on that last point. Because we incur these expenses, whether or not we operate the pool, it's another reason to bring in revenues for the pool because we have this base of cost in any event. But Tony, I wanted to ask you about that transfer.
Mhm.
Is that something that we would do in the budget or that you would ask us to do tonight?
So basically, what would happen is I would transfer it myself based on your recommendation tonight.
Okay, so we may as well
It's not
formally.
it's not an appropriations transfer. It's actually a transfer of dollars.
Uh-huh.
It's actually what you're doing is you're transferring expense into this to cover that deficit, and so the general fund is essentially covering a deficit in another fund.
Are there pros and cons, or is it just sort of a?
Yeah. So the pros and cons are that you're eliminating a deficit in another fund that exists, that has existed, so it cleans it up.
And now we don't use it, we don't use that other fund anymore.
Correct.
Right,
The
that's
other
what I
fund
figured.
is not being used anymore, so there's no revenue
So
coming
it
into that
just
fund. So it
ties
sort
it
of
up.
cleans it
So it
up.
cleans up the accounting and.
Yeah.
Right. And it's something you have to
That's
deal with
what I thought.
eventually. And I think I was hoping that we would be able to resolve this other issue and that it would resolve that
That's
issue.
what I thought it was, I just wanted to make sure.
And that hasn't quite happened yet. So I figured while we had this opportunity here for something for you to consider.
So why don't we formally do that? Is there a motion to accept Tony's recommendation to transfer the deficit in the country club fund of $101,595 to the general fund?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Okay.
you got it, Tony.
Thank you. Waste management, there's a surplus of $25,000, and that's due to some reduced tonnage in that department. And as we discussed earlier, employee benefits have a surplus of about $65,000, largely due to healthcare. I do want to mention to you, before we proceed, that the contingency after this evening's requested transfers is $101,000. And I think we're probably going to need most, if not all of that, for our snow removal costs, particularly overtime and product this year. We've had an icy year. We've gone through a lot of salt this year. And actually, since I did this report, we've had a couple additional storms. So I think in your March report, we'll have a very clear idea of where we are and what we're going to need to do that. The department does have some funds in road maintenance, which Warren typically uses for crack sealing, for various maintenance-related items that he's going to defer until next year to help to offset some of these costs. That's his recommendation. Part of it are vehicle costs, which you'll see in the transfers later, but the other balance probably should go towards the overtime and salt use. Last year when we had a lot of snow, it was all at once, and so there was a FEMA award for that, and so we didn't really have to spend a lot of money on that. This year they're all spread out. Haven't heard any talk of that this year. So we have to be very careful about that. So.
Tony, just to that point, I know every year in the budget, there's a dollar amount, I forget if it was $700,000 or $900,000 put towards public works, repaving roads.
Correct, right.
Is there a way to, in a year where it's a very difficult year like this,
Absolutely,
where
there's
we
a way.
could you know, shift some of that
Absolutely.
into paying for this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll come up with some suggestions for that, some capital projects that maybe we can close or that we can put a delay so that you don't have to use either all of contingency and you don't have to go into fund balance, which is the objective here.
Okay.
And then I just have one more question, but going back to the beginning of the report, you know, I always look at that 8,000
Right.
approximate surplus, but because we're taking $400,000 from reserve, so we kind of actually are down 392,000 for
Correct.
the actual budget.
correct.
But that just leads me to that reserve. I do have and I know we're going through the budget process, and it has to be probably approved every year, I'm assuming.
Correct.
You know, I'm getting a little nervous about that reserve because when I looked at the budget projection for this year and the balance, if next year, this fiscal year, we approve again, taking $400,000, we suddenly go from, I believe we're at 9.5% surplus to the budget. It starts to drop quicker,
That's
so it goes
correct.
immediately down to 8.5. Because it's one of those, you know, balls going downhill type thing.
Right. And it's a percentage of your budget, so as the
Yeah.
as the budget increases, that also
Exactly.
goes
So what
against
I
you.
did is just projected a slight increase to the budget from 45 change to 46, and I dropped that 400,000 to bring our reserve down to 3.9 million, and that comes to 8.5. So it drops a full percentage this coming budget year if we do that, and then of course if you go further with it, it starts to go quicker. So I do have a little concern of that, and obviously we can talk about that at budget time and
Right.
whether it makes sense to keep taking 400,000.
Correct.
To take
So
that
right, so
number
you could-
out of
You
reserve.
could certainly reduce it, and that would accomplish that.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify I had my numbers right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or tax refunds?
Oh, anything else on that? No, I
No,
think we go
that's
to
it.
tax refunds.
There's a refund of property taxes in the amount of $10,813.99. And there's a memo from the tax collector indicating the real estate refunds of $10,133.95 and motor vehicle refunds of $680.04.
Now, the request for refund, the first one to approve is a refund of property taxes in the amount of $10,813.99.
Right.
Do we do them together?
Yeah, you could just do, I
but-
mean, you can
You know, I don't,
10,813.99.
see the breakdown at the bottom.
yes.
So there's basically one real
But there
estate
was a-
property and then
Okay, so we'll do.
a few cars.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the refunds of real estate taxes in the amount of $10,133.95, motor vehicle refunds of $680.04, for a total refunds of $10,813.99.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a
Yikes.
second?
Second.
Oh, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Okay. Funding request?
Yep, the first funding request is a typo. Just so you know, that's $5,000, not $38,000.
Okay.
Because I would suppose your next question would be how could we spend $38,000 for
Well, you
uniform
know,
allowances,
I have
right?
to tell you, I saw this letter, and I thought, what happened? How much are they
And
buying?
we all have to wear the uniform.
Yeah, I thought we were buying Olympic uniforms.
I thought, holy smokes.
Tony, just so
Wow.
we're clear, the same figure is on your.
Right,
summary.
similar change, right, thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve line item transfer number 1314-12 in the amount of $5,000?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next one? Tony?
Second, yeah, sorry. The next one is for $5,400, and that's for property, auto, and liability insurance. And it's essentially when we went out to bid last year for those services, I think the budget wasn't quite high enough, and we were over budget. I think it's that simple, really.
Is there a motion to approve funding request number 1314-13, the amount of $5,400?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next one is 1314-14. It's for $4,000, and we rely heavily on an outside consultant for IT. And we've had a number of projects this year that cost us a little more than we had thought. And if you'll notice in our budget process, we're historically underfunded in this line anyway. It's basically Karen and I do all the IT work, so we requested $4,000 to help with that.
Some of that was for the economic development section of the website, was it, or that's not what this was?
No,
This was not related to
this
the
is not
website,
related
just
to
general.
economic development website.
general
It's for
IT.
we had to do some software migrations. We had to do some help with some problems with viruses that took a while. There was some access from home that we did that took cost us a little more than we thought.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Tony? I don't remember in your budget request, your department asking for an increase in this area. Did you?
It's in information systems, and yes,
Okay,
there
so
is
you
an
did
increase.
add more of a total package.
Correct, yeah,
And
for
what
next
was the
year.
increase you, can you mind me asking?
About the same amount.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Funding request 1314-14 in the amount of $4,000.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Next is 1314-15. We had one of our uninterrupted power supplies fail, and this is to replace that. We do have another one in the budget, because we have two of them. And so we were able to we were going to put two in the budget, so one we have to fund right now, and the next one we'll fund next year. Hopefully, it should last.
Is there a motion to approve funding request 1314-15 in the amount of $2,200?
So moved. Second.
Questions?
When I first read this, I thought it was
So delivery?
big package
Right.
delivery.
Failure, yes.
I was relieved when I read it the second time.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 1314-16.
Okay, this is the last one, right? Is a transfer, I spoke about it earlier, and this is for vehicles. What's that?
There's one more.
Oh, there is one more after this? Oh, right, yeah.
No worries.
Right. This is for vehicle repairs and equipment parts for Public Works. Again, due to our long winter, we've had a number of breakdowns, as you can see in the letter provided by Facilities.
And they're doing it within their budget.
Correct. This is part of
Which is a
the
good thing.
money I spoke of. You'll see it comes from road maintenance
Yeah.
for 20, and I think there's another, I'll tell you in 1 second. There's another, 46, be another $26,000 in there after this transfer.
Okay, is there a motion to approve line item transfer number 1314-16 in the amount of $20,000?
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
One more.
One more. It's from the police department, and it's to cover vehicle repairs and maintenance on police vehicles for $2,000.
Is there a motion to approve line item transfer number 1314-17 in the amount of $2,000?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
I think that's it.
All right.
Okay. Country Club of Woodbridge financials.
So these final financials are presented to you for the end of December 31st, 2013. And just to review, the net income, or in this case loss from the is $176,235.30. You can see that in the income statement in the first column. That's the income loss for the 6 months. If you look at the balance sheet, which is this sheet here, it gives you a nice summary also of where we wound up at the end of the operation. So this is, the balance sheet is cumulative from the beginning of the operation. So you can see essentially the amount of cash, that was remaining. Inventory, which we received a credit for. The payables, which had to be paid, $135,000, and deferred memberships, gift cards, that sort of thing. So these were the balances at the end of the year. The intercompany cash funding is, of course, the funding that we provided, and you'll see the retained earnings are the losses from the prior years, which is 635, and then 176 from this year gives you the total of 811. So it's a snapshot of where the operation wound up after the completion of the 2 years approximately. And so we've unwound this whole operation, and we've done all of the accounting to get the credits on our side, and to mirror what the and to carry out the contract that we have with them, essentially getting our credits, deferring. We've deferred in this figure is deferring half of the management fees, which was also in the contract. So we have that as a have not paid that yet, but we have it as an expense that's booked. And so I thought this was a nice thing for you to look at. And then attached to that is the income statement, which has it broken down by revenues and expenditures in a summary basis, which are these 2 sheets, and then on a detail basis, which are the 7 or 8 sheets that follow. So, as was indicated earlier by Bob, this is clearly as a revenue issue, and you could see the variance there is income variance is 195,000. So you can see that's where the most of the variance is there.
Any questions for Tony?
Yeah, I don't know about the use of the word nice. It was a very interesting report for us to see, but when I look at those numbers, I don't.
Well,
think
nice from a perspective of
to be able to
have a compact
Nice.
one spot where you can look and you can
Yeah.
see all the, all of the information.
interesting. Thank you very much for doing that.
So just a general question, I know it's not operational now, and the report they sent in, but we do plan on having them come back to our meetings, right? Even though we have this new arrangement.
It's part of the agreement,
Yeah.
continuing.
And they'll continue to send these
Yeah.
reports, only they'll change them, but you'll still be able to get these reports and see the information.
Well, can I follow up on that? And, because I don't know if we've made this official or if I just heard it from the meeting. The CCW commission, which is still going to meet with them and review those budgets before or whenever, I don't know whether we'll get them first or they'll get them first. But they're gonna review them with them and go into more detail, still over
Correct.
their budget.
Yeah, they
To
did this
see
one
how
last
things
month,
are-
and they'll
Yes,
continue
but
to.
they can't, they don't have the authority anymore to say what they should be, but Billy Casper will continue the same reporting that they did before. Yeah.
The writing needs to be smaller.
I'll have to make the note of that.
Make it smaller
Yeah,
next time.
okay.
Yeah, it's not the font, tiny. Jeez.
Okay, animal control, Tony.
Animal control report for January. There were 40 calls, 14 in Bethany, 10 in Derby, and 16 in Woodbridge. 2 dogs from Woodbridge were picked up and redeemed to their owners. There were 2 adoptions, 1 in Derby and 1 in Woodbridge. There are currently, as a printing of this report, 5 cats, 5 dogs at the shelter, and 1 rabbit. He's hanging around, that rabbit.
Where did they get the rabbit?
You don't know
Don't
where rabbits
know.
come from?
I don't know.
We'll talk
You
later.
have to tell me later. 148 people visited animal control, and 185 phone calls were fielded.
How many rabbits visited animal control? Never mind.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Tony?
I have 2, but they're kind of, I just wondering, because I kind of ask this every month, but still we're at where the woman animal control officer from Seymour is still helping us and still
Correct.
part of our system.
Correct.
And because there's not a resolution yet on Karen.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And, we had brought up a couple of times, and Ellen, with you about possibly starting to reach out to the other towns to just get
We
a whole
are
conversation.
investigating, and we are investigating all opportunities available to us.
Thank you.
What does that mean?
We've spoken with the mayor of Derby, we've spoken with the first selectman in Bethany, and we are exploring possible interest by Orange or
Fourth,
Milford.
correct, another
Right.
town,
Because
right?
every month we look at this and we pay half, but the numbers don't bear out, the fact that we should. So either we find someone else or Bethany
Reshuffle
and
deck.
we have to reshuffle.
Right.
Right, but we talked about that. That would be at the time the contracts expire, looking
Yeah,
at
so
that,
that
and
was
also
the-
talking to them about capital
Okay,
expenditures.
you asked that last time,
Yeah.
I didn't look, but I think they're coming up this June, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
when,
think
but that,
June.
we will definitely keep it in
I'll
mind.
check for sure, but I think it's June.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, item number 12, we have another part of the Personnel Committee report, and that would be approving the hire of the Assistant Administrative Officer.
So, we had applications for an assistant administrative officer position. We received between 130 and 140 applications, a lot of very qualified individuals. We interviewed 12 people in the first round, and 4 of those we felt were the top 4 we interviewed in the second round. And the recommendation, which I'm going to hand out for you, very qualified, very impressive group. The one we best felt fit the position is Betsy Yagla. I have her information here. And she comes to us with a bachelor's of journalism from the University of Missouri, and she has strong skills in writing and computers and design and some website skills, and she has management skills in New Haven Promise, where she worked, and she had outstanding recommendations from her recommendations that we researched. She also has a clean background check, which we also did, and so this was our recommendation. And it's for a salary of $55,000 plus benefits.
Is there a motion to approve the hiring of Betsy Yagla as its Assistant Administrative Officer?
So moved.
Excuse me, at a salary of $55,000.
So
Plus
moved.
benefits.
Thank you.
I'll
Second?
it.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
I assume you want this back. They don't have.
I don't
There's
think there's
nothing-
anything
There's
confidential in
nothing
that.
confidential on it. I mean, if you want to keep it, you're welcome to.
I know our administrative officer will be very happy to have an assistant administrative
Have a folder
officer
this
very
big,
quickly.
full of stuff.
Already meeting here.
Is it just the administrative officers going to be happy?
No, Jerry is gonna be happy, and the first selectman will be happy. Okay, town council's report?
Yes, we have a very short report. We had an ordinance committee meeting before this meeting. Joe attended and Susan attended and Ellen was there. This is something that we brought up a few months ago to our ordinance committee, and the ordinance committee wanted to see some proposed language, and you should all have the proposed language. The ordinance committee I think is going to recommend that the Board of Selectmen schedule the issue for a public hearing and an amendment to the existing elderly tax exemption ordinance. With this,
Excuse me, I don't have that.
Oh, we don't have it?
No, I haven't seen it.
We don't have.
Oh.
Well, I still have Joe's and maybe.
You can have mine.
Hold on, I think I have one.
Let me have yours, that's how you got it.
Here, I have one here.
Jerry, maybe we have
You have one.
we might have enough.
Share.
I'll
You
give
can take-
back
You
mine.
can take mine.
Okay.
yeah, here's one for Lauren.
Here's yours.
This is all I need.
Are we all good? Don't we have
We're
too
good,
many?
Jerry.
We're
We're all
good, I
set.
think everybody has.
We reshuffled.
Joe and I saw it.
So we're good.
Where is it?
Okay.
So with this ordinance, this has been an issue that has come up under the elderly tax exemption program that the town runs. And the issue is when a homeowner qualifies for, under all the requirements of the program for some tax relief because of age, there are situations where some residents, for estate planning purposes, will form a trust and put some of their property in what is known as a revocable trust, which the grantor, the resident can revoke at any time, and basically keeps complete control over the property for his or her life. But upon the passing of that person, the property automatically goes to beneficiaries, children, relatives, siblings, whatever. And it's a form of tax planning to avoid the probate court. The property does not need to go to probate and goes directly to the beneficiaries. And it is, the chief characteristic of it is that the individual giving the property to the trust retains all ownership, lives in if it's real estate, lives in the residence for his or her lifetime, and upon death it passes. So many towns have similar kind of programs where trust property is eligible for the program, even though it's it doesn't retain in the name of the homeowner. And we've had certain situations where some homeowners have said, I just tried to do some estate planning, my lawyer recommended I do this trust, and now I find out, even though I qualify under all the other requirements of the program, because I transferred this to a trust, I do not qualify. So we were thinking, we reviewed this and we thought that it would be fair to include these people, as many towns do. Guilford, Madison, Westbrook, and several towns in our area do have this program that allows the individual to take advantage of the exemption. So this is the proposal. The ordinance committee approved it, and I think there's going to be a motion for you to set a public hearing.
Right, why don't we do the motion and then we'll have discussion, okay? Is there a motion to schedule a public hearing on the proposed revised ordinance with respect to the elderly tax credit?
So moved.
Sue, second. Questions?
Public hearing would be next month?
Probably at our next meeting.
The way you amend our ordinance is through a public hearing. Jerry puts a notice in the newspaper, people can
Is it
come and speak on it.
30-day waiting period, I guess, when it has to be?
I think it's 15, I'm not sure the period of time. From the time we have to have a certain number of days go by before we can have it. I think it's 15 days, and if the Board of Selectmen approves the amendment, then it takes effect 30 days from approval.
So our goal will be the March meeting, but if that doesn't work time-wise, we'll do it after that.
And just to clarify, so as long as the homeowner who's residing in the home meets all the rest of the qualifications,
Absolutely.
happens to be in trust because they did some financial planning, then they would still receive the tax exemption. Do they need proof of residence? My question
Well-
about something like this has always been someone, in this case, let's call her a widower, and then she ends up having to go to a Coachman Square or some kind of, maybe she fell, maybe, and there's no determination, whether that's a permanent residence or she's in a rehab situation for a few months. If someone's not residing in the home, is still owner of the home, do they qualify for this? I don't.
Betsy Quist is the tax assessor. She administers the program. I'm not frankly certain of all the requirements. I would assume that the person has to reside in the home. Can't rent it out for sure.
Yes, right.
You can't have income out of it, but
And it can't be
I
vacant
assume
for
that
X amount of time.
she's pretty thorough when she goes over the qualifications of homeowners.
And this doesn't change that, this is
This
the
does not
underlying
change that.
program.
Right, exactly.
And the trust is also reviewed by council.
Right.
Yes, right.
To make sure it's a revocable trust, not irrevocable, et cetera, et cetera.
Great.
Other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, we're at item number 15, and, is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the town clerk's report?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 16, we have several sets of minutes. Jerry's been very busy. The first would be a motion to approve the minutes of the joint special meeting of the Boards of Selectmen and Finance regarding bonding for Beecher Road School improvements. The date was January 16th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or corrections about the minutes? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Thank
Wait,
you.
I'll abstain.
The next is, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen's special meeting minutes. Date was January 16th, 2014, and it was the presentation of the Mylone and McBroom draft interim report on the Country Club of Woodbridge property.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or corrections?
I have one thing, it's kind of funny. Page 2 of 4, the draft report included 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, potential for 9-hole golf course. There's 2 of those. It's just kind of funny. Configuration of a 9-hole.
Only Beth would pick.
I know.
It's easier putting that way, you just pick the
I
closest one.
guess, you get held back, I know.
Where was that again?
I'll send these over.
Oh, hold.
There's 2 of them in that, there's 2 of them in that paragraph. That's what I do.
D.E. close
Okay.
enough.
This is where I gave us.
Yep.
So
Page
we'll-
3 of 4 though, you did 9-hole, that was cool. You got it right, versus 18-hole.
Anything else?
It's funny.
All those
Sorry.
in favor of the minutes as amended by Beth?
Thank you.
Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Carrie, I'll abstain.
Next is approval of the Board of Selectmen special meeting of January 23rd, 2014. This was with respect to the Section 824 referral.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Next would be a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen's special meeting of January 30th, 2014. And this meeting was with respect to authorizing explanatory text and neutral printed materials regarding the Beach Road School project.
So moved.
Second.
I think there might be a correction coming.
Well, he found it.
Okay.
I didn't, because I don't read the names. Under the present for staff, Mr. Genovese is the administrative officer and director of finance. I didn't pick that up. Kudos to the
I didn't
director
want to say
of
that, because if I
finance.
said,
know.
I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
I think we
Then I'll
have
look
a
at me.
motion and second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as corrected?
Aye.
Okay. All right, item 17
Financing.
is first selectmen's report. Let's see, a few things I'd like to mention tonight. One is, of course, to say again, thank you to everyone involved in the Beecher Road School renovation project and the referendum. It was record-breaking and precedent-setting for our town and did demonstrate the commitment to education that we all share. So it was a wonderful event for the town. Also, during this week when we had the storm earlier in the week, and I know we have more coming, my colleagues in other towns, other mayors and first selectmen, what they commonly talk about is how many complaints have you had about your roads? And I want to make clear to everyone here and everyone watching how different it was in Woodbridge. Not only did, I was not aware of any complaints, and in fact, we
I didn't
had
get any.
compliments. You
None
know,
get
Tony
any
didn't
either.
get any complaints.
No.
Jerry, no complaints. We had one resident who brought coffee and donuts down to Public Works. We had a wonderful phone message from someone just thanking people. Bob Hill wrote a wonderful note about our
Yeah, we had
people at the
that.
transfer station and the Public Works. And as I've told people, one Republican friend of mine who rarely says anything complimentary said that our town roads were in better shape than our state roads, and he'd never seen that before. So it was, it's really, it's, yes, I heard that from other people.
I happened to be out the last couple of times at night, and it was first time I've ever really seen that, where the state roads clearly were not as good
Yes.
as the side roads, even, and I meant little side roads like I live on. Usually, you know, I'll give an exception to, of course, they can't get, but even my road was in better shape than state roads, so we were more prepared or got out better and did a better job.
So kudos to Warren Connors and the whole department. I think we all join in that.
Absolutely.
It's really another credit to the town. We mentioned the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department did a great job at B'nai Jacob in a difficult situation. I want to mention some meetings that I've been having. You've been asking about them, so some you've been asked about and some I'll just mention now. I have been meeting with Tony Harp, the new mayor of New Haven, to explore ways in which our towns can cooperate. There's already been the West River project that runs through our towns, the Pond Lily Dam, and also the Exit 59 issues will certainly impact both New Haven and Woodbridge, and we can work together on that. I've been attending the Regional Economic Acceleration Development meetings. That's been combined with the New Haven Economic Development Commission, and that's also groups of local first selectmen and economic development directors, when they have them, to talk about intermunicipal cooperation on the economic development side. The South Central Connecticut Regional Council of Governments, I've been attending those meetings as well. We approved some resolutions today. They do look to have cooperative initiatives among the towns to help us all with efficiencies. Tony's worked on some
Purchasing,
projects
yep.
with them. The regional DIS data came up today, so there's good potential there. Twice during the last month and a half, I've attended mediations at the Milford Courthouse with respect to the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department inland wetlands case. And as I've said before, both parties have really come a long way and come to the table in good faith to see what they can work out. So I'm optimistic that that will proceed. January 23rd was the Economic Development Commission Outreach Breakfast, which was very successful at the JCC, well attended and very well received by local businesses. I've also met with the Mayor of Derby, also to talk about how our towns may cooperate, what projects there may be, and particularly the 902 Baldwin Road has come up. I'm not sure where that's going, but to at least open conversations and say we share this beautiful resource and see what's possible there. In fact, Tony and Terry Gilbertson and Jason Morrill went with me this week, and we had a good meeting with the mayor in Derby. And also, I had attended, I've talked about this before, the DOT presentation on their plan for Exit 59, which is something that we sorely need in this town, is some change there. The plan was quite good. I think I may have mentioned to all of you before, at the end of the presentation, I asked if everything goes well, how soon will we see this implemented? And they said, without any sense that this was humorous or anything other than serious, they said 30 years. So they are coming back to make a presentation. They will be making a presentation in Woodbridge. I've been in touch with the Lieutenant Governor and mentioned this to her and hope that perhaps people, right, that maybe people,
outrageous.
right, that,
They also, I mean, they've also made comment that if it gets fast-tracked because of the incidence of accident rates, you could see it in 10, so.
right. And people who have been through DOT projects are not surprised to hear that, but we'll do everything we can to try to expedite it. But there will be more information about that. Okay, next item is role of liaisons, which we discussed a couple of months ago. Joe and Tony had sent in a proposal, which is in the packet here. I met with just about every commission chair, so that in discussing the role of liaisons, we could also have the point of view of the chairs and what it means to the different commissions. You know, I don't know exactly the genesis of the liaison program, but I imagine it comes from our charter requirement that the Board of Selectmen keep itself informed of the activities of the different boards and commissions. Generally, the commission chairs felt that it was very helpful to have liaisons. Perhaps not at every single meeting, and I think that's one of the things that we've talked about, and I think Joe and Tony were kind of suggesting liaisons and commission chairs can work out what's appropriate, what's necessary. Some may think every meeting is really important, others may not, and it's sort of the individual people and the individual commissions. But they did feel that having a liaison does help the Board of Selectmen member understand in a deeper way what's going on with the commission. And also they found it helpful for some kinds of ministerial questions, like is this something that's come up with the Board of Selectmen, or how do we proceed? So it was actually good to hear that they appreciated the role. They do understand the FOI limitations, and that certainly, and I think we've all talked about this, liaisons do not participate in executive sessions and are not part of the commissions, do not participate in commission work. Given the discussions I've had and what we've all talked about, I'm not recommending any particular change to what we've been doing, except that people should feel comfortable talking to their chairs and establishing what's the appropriate process. You know, it may be that there are some meetings where reviewing minutes or just a quick chat with the commission chair is plenty, and others where people may want to go more regularly. So, I don't know if there's any other discussion about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about the fact that the board of, this is the executive board of this town, but really at a grassroots level, the volunteer boards and commissions have a lot to say about what happens in this town, and that has to be that way. I don't frankly feel that the liaison process we have right now keeps the board really informed of what's, I think that these boards and commissions should appear before this board. They're agents of us, and I think they should be here, whether it's quarterly or whatever. But the notion that they never come here, and because they have a liaison, and I just think is not proper executive control. So the only, you know, if we don't wanna change the liaison, as Tony and I, that's fine, but I do feel strongly that these underlying boards and commissions should be here before this board on a periodic basis, so that everybody, not just the liaison, will know what's going on. I mean, the reports are fine, and, you know, yes, they did this, they did that, but for them to come here and, you know, spend some time and let the other folks ask questions and find out what's going on, I think it's our duty to know that. That's my own 2 cents. I just don't see how you have a fire commission, a police commission, and all this, and they never come here. I know I can go to their meetings, but, you know, that gets to be overkill.
I feel quite differently. I believe the executive function of this board is limited to the first selectman. And I see the role of the rest of this board as legislative. We have at-large elections in this town. We don't represent districts. I think the liaison program gives us a chance to carve out a district. And I, you know, I've served as a liaison to a number of different boards and commissions over time. It has been different with each, but I have sort of embraced the idea that I get to bird dog the work of those commissions, and to call them, you know, to call them here, I think is really beyond the scope of this board.
Well, I agree that what we discussed, back to the liaison, and each commission should have one, and go to the meetings as can be, and if especially if a board or commission feels it's an important meeting or there's something coming up, they'd like to have you there. So I think in our proposal, we decided that would be a good thing to continue. I do agree with Joe about having them here, and I disagree a little bit with you, Lawrence, only in that I believe the wording, and I believe that they are an agent for the Board of Selectmen, not for the first selectman. However, that being said, regardless of the wording, I think the benefit of them coming, and again, whether the right amount is 4 times a year or 3 times a year, having the commission coming, or at least having the chairman, is that one of the problems I have about the liaison is I go to the meetings, and there are times they're not sure if I can participate, I'm not sure if and it's really not meant for the liaison to participate that much, other than maybe clarifying an answer or something. But the benefit of having them come here is not so that we're going to drill them or go at, but we can actually ask some questions, because even as the liaison of a commission, for example, I'm liaison for rec, my role isn't really to sit there and participate in their meeting, but I have questions I'd love to get in there. When they come here to report to the board, it would be an appropriate time that we can ask questions and get a feel for what's happening. Whereas when I'm sitting there as a liaison, I'm not really supposed to be participating in that manner. And I feel like there are just, and I'm sure you all have it, there's a time you say, I'd really kind of like to ask or make a comment about that or clarify something. And by bringing them here, it's not to go after anybody, it's just an opportunity for us to kind of get a feel for what's happening and get to ask some of those questions, especially for the liaisons, because I know you've all sat there saying, I'd like to just get one point in. And that would be an opportunity for, and also the first selectman isn't a liaison. So she really isn't at any of them except for an occasional special meeting or something. It gives her an opportunity, or him, depending on who's in power at the time, to get a feel for those boards and commissions and what's happening without having to go, because it is a lot to ask not only us, but the first selectman to try to go to so many meetings all the time, when, at least if there was a reporting happening at a predetermined time, again, twice a year, 3 times a year, it gives us all an opportunity to kind of know what's happening and ask some questions. That's all.
Tony, if you have questions, do you ask the chair at another?
I'll be honest
phone
with you,
and ask
Beth,
the question?
each one is very different on how they, sometimes
So
they
you don't have to
just
do it at the
include
meeting,
in.
right?
Yeah, sometimes they just literally will ask me something during the meeting, and other times we're more, maybe after the meeting, there may be something that is asked, but I think we all find it a little awkward not knowing exactly what the right role is, and I'm just saying here, if they were reporting, we know that the role is okay for us to ask some questions about what's happening and make comment, and we don't really have that role as a liaison, and I find it more frustrating as the actual liaison than for someone, in other words, you're a liaison for a group I don't know. Well, I'm more frustrated with the groups that I am liaison for, because I really, having known all the details, I'd like to ask a question or have some kind of
I'd like to make a suggestion. I did speak to the liaisons because it was in your proposal. I asked them how they felt about coming here. I forget what you put in there, 3 or 4 times a year, or
You mean the chair.
the chairs. I'm sorry, the
Chairs,
chairs.
yeah.
And there were various responses. I mean, some people said, I could come once a year. Others said, I'm already giving so much time with the meetings that it would, these are people who volunteer a lot of time, and they really felt it would be an additional burden on their time. What I'd like to suggest is, if any liaison feels there's something going on in the commission, a big picture item, because we don't want to get reports on the day-to-day stuff that they're dealing with, why doesn't the liaison suggest to that commission and invite them to come and present to the board? I mean, I think that's something else people can do on an ad hoc basis, and then we can follow up if we need
Yeah,
to.
and the reason I brought this topic up initially was because I was concerned about the inconsistencies regarding how we were some of us were involved in executive sessions and some of us were not. So at least now we've resolved that consistency part. That's a good thing. But to your point, Ellen, we do get reports from the commissions when there is something topical going on. It's not like they're in Siberia and, we're here in Woodbridge. When there's something of not even a burning issue, an important issue in town, we do hear from the commissions as a rule. And I think your point is correct. If for some reason it seems like there's a dark hole, I could certainly see either you or the liaison saying, we really need to hear about this from the whole board, in front of the whole board. But look, there's a project going on, Beecher shows up. There's something going on with the fire department, we have Aaliyah here. When there's something going on with TPZ, Jeff Kaufman has been here. When there's something, now it's true we don't hear from things like ZBA, but they have an independent statutory authority. They're not a commission of this organization and of this town in quite the same way. Is that right, Jerry? Isn't it viewed differently if you have independent statutory authority?
Right, that's correct.
What?
There's wetlands as well.
And
CGT
Woodlands as
is
well?
also-
Right. So I'm satisfied myself with, I agree with you to the extent that it is sort of a work in progress. I mean, it's a nuance, every board is a little different, every commission's a little different, and there is some personal interaction, but I hate to sort of formalize that.
I just get concerned about a couple of issues that it came before the board after there was already a problem, that maybe we would have been able to head off or seen.
Well, that's where being a liaison is
That's
helpful.
what
Then
then
you
you
Well,
can say to somebody,
but
gee,
those
we
prob-
really need to be on top of
Okay, but I mean, I
it."
wasn't liaison necessarily for those groups, but I don't wanna put the blame on the liaison necessarily. Obviously, there are times, I think, that if there were questions being asked by a full board, there might have been a chance to avoid a couple of the problems we've seen before they've come here. But also, let's just say you're liaison for a particular group. Well, you may think that group everything is day-to-day, but there might be something, because you're not even getting a chance to ask questions, but none of us see that the board may see as something we'd like to know further. But I have no way of knowing and saying, Susan, can you ask the police department commission to I have no, unless I go to those meetings or get a chance to watch them, if some of them are taped.
But Tony, I don't think semi-annual meetings would necessarily bring up those issues. So I'm gonna suggest, I think we've talked about it, I understand the concerns. I don't know if you wanna make a formal motion to make a change, or let's see how it works. People work with their chairs and see what happens, okay? Great, all right. Is there any other business to be added? Otherwise, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Oh.
Liaison reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the liaison report. Okay.
No, we called that motion, so
He's ready to go.
we called the motion. to
I'm
adjourn the
sorry.
meeting.
Well, if it helps, the police department hasn't yet. So there you go. That was a
I
short
have a
one.
short one, and
I
I'll
am
just do it next
sorry.
time. It's okay.
Joe's
Nothing-
pretty
nothing-
technical. Once
nothing
that
anyone
motion
needs
is
to know.
done, I'm with you though.
I just follow your lead.
I'll record mine and send a link.
Send
Call it.